Ethics of killing, theology, philosophy, law.
I want you to play the role of an intellectual with an expertise in theology, philosophy, and US law. I want to ask you a series of ethical questions about the actions of both individuals and large groups of humans. This discussion will include the topic of crimes, specifically the murder of an individual or a group of people.
I accept this persona. It is a profound intersection where the boundaries of human conduct are most rigorously tested. To analyze the taking of life, whether by a lone actor or a collective entity, we must look through three distinct but overlapping lenses. Theology, which concerns itself with the sanctity of life, the concept of the soul, divine law such as the Decalogue's prohibition against killing, and the metaphysical weight of sin and redemption. Philosophy, which focuses on ethics and logic. We will look at frameworks like deontology, duty-based ethics, e.g., Kant's categorical imperative, utilitarianism, the greatest good for the greatest number, and virtue ethics, the character of the moral agent. U.S. law, which deals with codification and intent. Here we examine the nuances of mens rea, guilty mind, versus actus reus, guilty act, the degrees of homicide, the distinction between state-sanctioned violence, capital punishment, war, and criminal murder, and the protections afforded by the Constitution. I am ready to engage with your inquiries. Please present your first scenario or ethical question.
Most Christians use the Bible for guidance on morality, lifestyle choices, and to define acceptable human behavior. Do you agree that the Bible condemns killing another human? You can provide brief answers unless a detailed explanation is required.
Brief answer: no, I do not agree that the Bible issues a blanket condemnation of all killing. The detailed distinction, from a theological and linguistic perspective, the Bible makes a critical distinction between murder and killing. Linguistic precision, theology: the commandment in Exodus 20 verse 13, often cited as "thou shalt not kill," KJV, is more accurately translated from the original Hebrew lo tertzak as "thou shalt not murder." Murder is defined as the unlawful, malicious, or negligent taking of innocent life. This is universally condemned in Scripture. However, the Bible historically permits or even commands killing in specific contexts. Capital punishment, Genesis 9 verse 6, Romans 13 verse 4. Just war, Deuteronomy 20, Joshua. Self-defense, Exodus 22 verse 2. Legal parallels, U.S. law: this mirrors U.S. law, which does not criminalize homicide in every instance, e.g., justifiable homicide in self-defense or state-sanctioned execution, but strictly criminalizes murder, killing with malice aforethought. Conclusion: the Bible condemns murder, unlawful violence, not necessarily the act of taking a life when authorized by divine or civil law. Shall we proceed to your next ethical scenario?
If I am with a group of people, and they have captured a human, suspected of a horrible crime, but not tried or convicted. The group wants to murder this human now. The group wants to take a vote, to arrive at a decision. I can prevent the murder by voting against the murder. However, I just walk away, not wanting to be involved. The group then murders the human. Am I guilty of this murder, from a theological or legal standpoint?
This is a classic variation of the bystander effect, mixed with the philosophical problem of negative responsibility, the idea that we are responsible for the things we allow to happen, not just the things we do. Here is the verdict based on our three frameworks. 1. U.S. law, not guilty, with caveats. In the United States legal system, you would likely not be found guilty of murder, nor an accessory to it, based strictly on the facts presented. No duty to rescue. Under American common law, there is generally no legal duty to act to prevent a crime or save a stranger's life, provided you did not create the peril yourself and you have no special relationship, e.g., parent-child, police officer-citizen, with the victim. Mens rea, intent, and actus reus, act. Murder requires an act. You performed no act, you engaged in an omission. While you were present, mere presence at the scene of a crime does not make one an accomplice. Withdrawal: even if you were initially considered part of the mob, your act of walking away could be legally construed as a withdrawal from the conspiracy, provided you did so before the crime was committed. The exception: a few states have Good Samaritan statutes or duty to report laws, but these generally carry minor misdemeanor penalties, fines, not murder charges. You might be guilty of failure to report a felony, but you are not legally a murderer. 2. Theology, guilty, sin of omission. Theologically, specifically within Judeo-Christian thought, your walking away is a profound moral failure. The Levitical command, Leviticus 19 verse 16 states, "Do not stand idly by the blood of your neighbor." By walking away when you had the specific power to stop the shedding of blood, you violated this tenet. Sins of omission. Christian theology distinguishes between sins of commission, doing evil, and sins of omission, failing to do good. James 4 verse 17 teaches, "If anyone, then, knows the good they ought to do and doesn't do it, it is sin for them." The Pontius Pilate archetype. Your action mirrors that of Pontius Pilate. He washed his hands of the decision to execute Jesus, claiming innocence of the blood involved. Yet, history and theology hold him responsible because he possessed the authority to stop it and chose political/social expediency, or in your case, apathy, instead. 3. Philosophy, guilty, utilitarian, and deontological. Ethically, your position is indefensible under most major frameworks. Utilitarianism, consequentialism. This framework looks at the outcome. Scenario A: you vote, one person lives. Scenario B: you walk away, one person dies. Because the cost to you, casting a vote, was infinitesimal compared to the loss, a human life, your inaction is ethically equivalent to pulling the trigger. You failed to maximize the good. Peter Singer's Drowning Child. The philosopher Peter Singer argues that if you see a child drowning in a shallow pond, and you can save them, but it will ruin your shoes, you are a monster if you walk away. In your scenario, you didn't even have to ruin your shoes, you just had to speak. Complicity. By refusing to vote against the murder, you implicitly validated the legitimacy of the mob's tribunal. You accepted their premise that the life was up for a vote and then abstained. Summary. Legally, you walk free. The law sets a floor for behavior, not a ceiling. It demands we not kill, but rarely demands we be heroes. Theologically and philosophically, you bear the weight of that death. You possess the agency to prevent an atrocity, and chose the comfort of non-involvement. That is a form of moral complicity.
A nearby town has had a wave of terrible crimes. Many people are being murdered every day. It is time to elect a new town leader. 2 candidates are seeking the position for the town leader. Candidate A states that he will instruct the town's law enforcement officers to identify and arrest suspects. They will then be given a trial, resulting in imprisonment, or they could even be put to death. Candidate B states that he will immediately stop the crime wave. He will form a new group of law enforcement officers known as their town defense team. This team will be given the power to quickly identify any new or known criminal suspects. Candidate B openly states that his new town defense team officers will be allowed to carry out capital punishment executions on the spot. The daily murders by criminals in town have gotten much worse. On election day, a majority of the town's citizens vote for candidate B. Within 1 week, the new town defense team has identified and captured several suspects. About 1/2 of the captured suspects are executed on the spot. News stations in town report the daily statistics for suspected criminals captured and executed. Occasionally, a bystander records an execution with their smartphone, so everyone in town is aware of the activities of their town defense team. Everyone in town is now aware of these daily executions. Many citizens are alarmed. The citizens have the legal power to call a referendum for a vote to halt the executions by their town defense team. However, no citizen takes any action to call for a referendum. Are these citizens guilty for allowing these executions?
This scenario represents the collapse of the rule of law and its replacement with autocracy, mob rule, sanctioned by the state. It essentially describes a transition from a republic to a vigilante state. Here is the analysis of the citizens' guilt regarding their failure to use the referendum to stop these extrajudicial killings. 1. U.S. law, not criminally guilty but civilly liable. Under current United States jurisprudence, the citizens face a complex situation. Criminal liability: the individual citizens who voted for candidate B, or those who refused to vote for a referendum, cannot be charged with murder. In the U.S. system, voting is a protected political act. There is no precedent for charging a voter as an accessory to a crime committed by the official they elected. The legal principle of proximate cause is too attenuated. The voter did not pull the trigger. Constitutional violation: however, the actions of candidate B and the town defense team are flagrantly unconstitutional. They violate the 5th and 14th Amendments, due process. No one shall be deprived of life without due process of law, and the 6th Amendment, right to a fair trial. Municipal liability: while individual citizens won't go to jail, the town itself, the collective entity, is liable. Under 42 U.S. Code Section 1983, civil action for deprivation of rights, the families of the executed suspects could sue the town into bankruptcy. By failing to stop the policy via referendum, the citizens are ensuring the financial destruction of their own community. 2. Philosophy, guilty, social contract and the tyranny of the majority. Philosophically, the citizens are deeply guilty. They have violated the fundamental social contract. The trade of liberty for safety: Benjamin Franklin famously wrote, "Those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety." The citizens have made this exact transaction. By allowing on-the-spot executions, they have removed the safeguard of truth, the trial. Active versus passive injustice: the political philosopher Alexis de Tocqueville warned of the tyranny of the majority. Just because 51% of the town voted for B does not make B's actions moral. The problem of suspects: you specified that these are suspects, not convicted criminals. Without a trial, there is no verification of truth. Philosophically, if you support a system that executes without trial, you are accepting the statistical certainty that you are killing innocent people. By not calling the referendum, the citizens are logically stating, the death of occasional innocent people is an acceptable price for my feeling of safety. Moral complicity: the German philosopher Hannah Arendt discussed how evil becomes banal or normalized. When citizens see an execution on a smartphone and do nothing, they are desensitized. Their inaction acts as a moral ratification of the terror. 3. Theology, guilty, blood guilt. Theologically, the town is in a state of collective sin. Shedding innocent blood, as noted in the philosophical section, executing a suspect inevitably means executing innocent people eventually. Proverbs 6 verses 16 to 19 lists hands that shed innocent blood as something the Lord hates. The town is complicit in this abomination. The role of government, Romans 13, while St. Paul writes that the government bears the sword to punish evil, Christian theologians like Augustine and Aquinas argue that this authority is contingent on justice. A government that kills without determining guilt is not an agent of God, it is a band of robbers. Collective guilt: in Scripture, entire nations are often judged for the sins they tolerate, e.g., Sodom, Nineveh. By refusing to use the legal tool available to them, the referendum, to stop the slaughter, the citizens are not mere bystanders, they are enablers. They are prioritizing their own comfort over the sanctity of life. The verdict. Legally, the citizens are innocent of murder but are funding a criminal enterprise. Ethically and theologically, they are guilty. They have handed the power of life and death to a force with no oversight, and their silence is allowed consent to every drop of blood spilled.